Now Bernie and Juwu were a full part of the conversation. I made it clear they had a right to remain silent, so I appreciated their willingness to talk for me. But something about these statements bothered me. Do you mean you didn't know or that you didn't remember until just then? No, I've never met another single digit besides myself. I only learned Juwu was one as well when I got that order. Same here. I don't think any of them know each other's true identity, except for the commander and vice commander. That was a surprise. The Empire's best forces don't even know each other at all. Why are they leaving them in the dark like that? Understood. Presumably it is for the purpose of preventing treachery. If they don't know each other's identities, they can't conspire to overthrow their bosses. That's just beyond thorough. It shows how careful they are to protect the Emperor's safety, I guess. I can understand that, I suppose, but it strikes me as pretty wasteful and inefficient. If you two were acquainted, you could have been working together against me from the very beginning. My statement elicited a chuckle from Ghidorah. Sir Rimuru, may I speak frankly and with the utmost of respect for you? Sure, of course. Anything's welcome. Very well. If I may, Sir Rimuru, you possess a great deal of intelligence, but I fear that you are not very careful at times. I know this man Damrada very well, and I'll inform you that he's a cunning fellow. He doesn't even trust his own subordinates, and for him, caution is his lifelong mantra. Sounds like Raphael was right, they arranged it that way to prevent any conspiracies. I knew Damrada was one of the 3 leaders of Cerberus and a man who trusted money and nothing else, but I guess he was that way with everything in his life, huh? And he was one of the highest ranking single digits as well. I've never met him before, but he sounds like a pretty bad guy. Given his approach to killing Ghidorah, I figured he had to be a single digit. And if he was in a position to give orders to you two, Bernie and Juwu, does that mean Damrada's the head of the group? No, Ghidorah replied. Damrada is likely the vice commander. I am all but certain the commander is Tensura Kondo. Right. The director of the Imperial Intelligence Bureau and one of the people Ghidorah had his eye on. Ghidorah said he didn't know him very well, but despite the lack of information, he seemed fairly certain about that based on Damrada's true identity. Having all this exposed left the Imperials in the room despondent. Bernie and Juwu were giving me all sorts of useful info. They must have figured there's no point hiding it any longer. They said Ghidorah was right that Damrada is the vice commander of the Imperial Guardians, ranked number 2 in the whole empire. We weren't sure if Kondo was the leader yet, but there's no doubting that Damrada's still way up there in the hierarchy. Good job, Ghidorah, I thought as I listened to them. And to tell the truth, the attack on Lord Rimuru wasn't a command from Sir Damrada, but actually a secret order from Commander Kondo. It was for me, too. It was weird, I thought, because it overrode our orders to guard Masayuki. Juwu explained to me that she had prepared a backstory for herself where her home village was rescued by Masayuki. That way, he'd instantly trust her, and then she'd be repaying the favor by guarding him. Well, if you were going to blow your covers at the same time, wouldn't it have been better to work together from the start? I agree with you, yes. I believe he was using Masayuki to keep from arousing your suspicion, because it certainly was the perfect opportunity to kill you. Looking back on it, Bernie realized that he had some questions about the whole thing. Assuming there were no lies in their tale, and considering the overall situation, it might have been that Damrada and the commander had different objectives. Damrada organized this entire undercover operation. It'd be odd for him to order his total abandonment. Maybe it was a sacrifice made to improve their chances of success, but even so, I was sure there could have been another way. I thought it was natural for Bernie and Juwu to wonder about that and to suspect some underlying reason for it. By the way, have any of you Empire guys ever seen Emperor Ghidorah's face? The question suddenly occurred to me, so I asked it. Only Ghidorah raised his hand. Are you kidding me? You don't know what the man you serve looks like? Benimaru sounded pretty surprised. Well, boss, you don't act much like any other ruler, Cajun said. You're social enough to go eating and drinking around town, and you're always willing to chat with anyone who wants to. That's just weird. Oh, come on. Hey, no disrespect intended. King Gazelle has that side to him, too, although he's a bit stricter with his behavior than you. But you know, royals and nobles kindle like a little more prestige in their lives, right? And I think a good number of them prefer keeping their faces away from the little folk. Huh. What Sir Cajun said makes sense to me, noted triggered, but I'm still not sure I really understand it. That is to say, hiding your face from the people who are supposed to be guarding you, even. Isn't it a little too excessive? Well, yeah, even I thought that was going way too far, Cajun agreed. It is weird, innit? Not weird, Hakuro said to Gopta, so much as abnormal. Bernie, was it? May I ask you a question? What do you want to know? Why is it that the Emperor's own guardians don't even know what he looks like? How are you meant to guard him, then? Being exposed to that sharp gaze of Hakuro's made Bernie sit back up, attempting to rally himself. Well, it's simple. Only people rank 6 or greater have seen His Majesty in person. Our commander and vice commander are often out on other business, but the remaining 4 accompany our emperor at all times. The members of this quartet were apparently referred to as the 4 Knights, and all of them were so formidable that, as far as Bernie and Juwu knew, none of them had been replaced in many, many years. So the 2 of you weren't quite as trusted as those 4, then. Are you inferior to these 4 Knights in ability as well? Takuro certainly wasn't shying away from the tough questions. It seemed to frustrate Bernie a little. You could take it that way, yes. Trying to defeat any of those 4 would be an uphill battle for me. Plus, His Majesty is also attended to by the juggernaut we discussed before, the fearsome Imperial Marshal, someone I'd never have a chance against. In fact, I'm not sure the rest of the single digits together could even score a victory against this menace. There's that so-called juggernaut again. So far, we know about Kondo, Damrada, the 4 Knights, and this martial figure, huh? That makes 7, and if you add Bernie and Juwu to that, you've got 9 people, 1 for each single digit, so to speak. But hang on, if the cutoff for access to the Emperor was single digit number 6, then the Marshal must not be a rank member, technically. That means there's still 1 more unknown single digit out there, in other words, 8 people I'd better stay on my guard for and all. And if Kondo wasn't actually the commander, that'd be 1 more figure to add to the mix. Worrying, indeed. Learning about that was good and all, but I wanted to ascertain something else first. You know, I heard from Ghidorah that Masayuki and Emperor Ludor look exactly alike. Ghidorah nodded. The rest of the meeting hall considered this for a few moments. And Damrada ordered you to protect Masayuki, right? And he arranged things so that both of you would be in the dark about each other, and nobody would suspect anything. But after all that trouble, you received an order that abandoned the entire setup. Is it me, or are Damrada and the single-digit commander working against each other here? I was pretty sure about this by now, so I went ahead and said it out loud. If I had to guess, it seemed likely Damrada really was trying to keep Masayuki safe. Why? I don't know, but the fact that he and the Emperor are spitting images of each other must have something to do with it. But you said you were using Masayuki, right? Right. I had no idea why we were asked to protect him, keep in mind. That's why I didn't question the commander's order at all. Me neither. Sir Damrada never explained his reasoning at all. They were using Masayuki to get closer to me. If Damrada ordered them to do so, it would have made sense, but then the commander had to stick their neck in. This brought up another question I had to ask. So do you think the commander's aware of Masayuki's resemblance to the Emperor? That's a good question, Ghidorah said. But if the commander is Kondo, as I believe he is, then he most certainly would have known. We do know this man Kondo, although I can't surmise what his situation was at the time. The stories say he's a very sly man, who has an iron grip on all the intelligence the Empire has. Yes, in his capacity as head of the IAB, he's been called a mysterious figure stalking the halls of information. The Ayaban military have never been on very friendly terms with each other, and I had a hard time dealing with him, too. We had tried launching hostilities against him several times, but they all ended in failure. That alone is proof that he's far from ordinary. Funny how Caligulio was trying to fudge the details, only to have minutes reveal everything anyway. It was clear that, to the Imperial military, Kondo was seen as a wild card and a threat, and, if he could get the better of someone as talented as Minutes, he was a force to be reckoned with. I could certainly never beat him anyway. Old man Ghidorah, despite appearances, is no slouch in battle. By my estimation, he might rank up there with a saint in strength. His magical count isn't all that high, but he more than makes up for it with his casting skills. If someone like him claims he can't win, then Kondo must be at least saint level, a titan up there with Hinata or King Gazel. Besides, Bernie and Juwu were saints as well, and Caligulio went and got himself awakened. Without an ultimate skill to call his own, Ghidorah probably couldn't have beaten any of them. So now I knew that Kondo's a danger in a fight and a master of spycraft. And he must have known about Masayuki, I imagine. But if Kondo was aware of Masayuki, I said, perhaps he had different intentions from Damrada, huh? Bernie and Juwu's attack was so massive, it's clear they didn't really care if Masayuki lived or died. That's totally at odds with Damrada's order. Well, Bernie had a bit of trouble picking his words. To tell the truth, what the commander told us exactly was to get rid of Masayuki as well, since he'd no longer be useful. Such was their orders, but after traveling together and building something of an attachment, they were both hesitant to just kill the guy. Hence they decided to put off discussing his fate until they were finished with me. If they could hide him somewhere, then perfect. If not, the idea they had was to magically erase his memories instead. Anyway, it was all crystal clear to me now. So we know that something's definitely up with Masayuki. I know he's not gonna like this, but I think he'll need to be kept under guard for a little while. Can I have you handle that, Zoe? Yes, sir. Right. I knew I could count on him. Let's assume the Damrada and the commander have different agendas, then. One of them wants to protect Masayuki. The other one wants him dead. We don't know why yet, of course, but clearly there's a conflict here. Yes. And if we can find a way to take advantage of this, it could be a great windfall for us. I don't think it'll be that easy. But the fact that our enemy isn't a monolith is itself good news. You think so? I guess. If you're having trouble distinguishing friend from foe, then you have to assume everybody's a foe. But let's get some more information before we decide on matters.